Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Beth Wallace. I'm the Associate Director for Early Childhood Educator Engagement for Vermont AEYC, and we're so pleased to have our panelists today here to answer your questions about Act 76. We have with us Jen Horowitz, Let's Grow Kids Policy and Research Director, Erin Roche, First Children's Finance Vermont Director, Janet McLaughlin, CDD Deputy Commissioner, and Dawn Rouse, CDD Director of Statewide Systems. Today, we're going to focus on answering your questions that were submitted with registration for this call. This will be recorded and made available after the webinar. If we have time, we'll answer additional questions that you can put in the question and answer feature. Let's Grow Kids staff will be monitoring the Q&A. If we do not have time to answer additional questions, we'll review those submitted and we'll think about how to best communicate answers to the questions that seem to be top of mind for many. We'll also be putting resources in the chat throughout this webinar that may help answer some of your questions. We're going to start with Jen Horowitz from Let's Grow Kids, who's going to walk us through the Act 76 implementation timeline and give us some general information about the bill.
Thanks, Beth. So we had questions come in about many different parts of Act 76. So what we're going to walk through today is a very abbreviated version. There is a lot that's in the bill. We're going to try and touch on the main points and what's happening this year and what's happening next year. If there are additional questions, please use that Q&A feature. We're going to go through things at a pretty high level in terms of the overview of the bill and really pass it on to folks from the Child Development Division and First Children's Finance to go into detail about the questions. So this is just going to be a brief overview of key highlights that will hopefully be useful. And I'm just getting that screen share pulled up. So this is a quick overview of key pieces that are currently in progress right now or have happened and what is coming up in this next year that most directly impact childcare programs. So to begin with, in 2023, the Childcare Financial Assistance Program reimbursement rates increased earlier this summer for all programs who were not yet at a 5-star reimbursement rate level. So all of those reimbursement rates came up to that 5-star level. And that was our kind of first influx of funding through Act 76 implementation. There were also new rules that went into effect regarding directors' on-site time at center-based childcare programs and regarding tuition rate setting. And I think, as many of you know right now, and which Child Development Division is going to talk more about, we have the Readiness Payments Program, which is basically funding to help programs be able to prepare for changes that are forthcoming in the system, a lot of which are happening next year. And also, there has been an Act 76, the forming of a pre-K committee that is looking into how to continue to grow and strengthen Vermont's pre-K program. That group has launched its work, and that work will continue over the course of the next year plus. And that group is set to sunset in February 2025 with a major report due in December 2024. So the key things that we wanted to focus on right now are really what's coming up in 2024. There's a lot that's happening, especially with the Childcare Financial Assistance Program. So in January 2024, the next big increase in reimbursement rates is scheduled to take place. And that is a 35% increase over the current 5-star payment rates. Those payments are also shifting to being made based on enrollment. And this is also aligned with a change in statute that says that programs may receive reimbursement rates that are higher than their stated tuition rates. So those are a whole set of really important changes that are happening from the program perspective. In April, there is an expansion of who is eligible for the Child Care Financial Assistance Program in terms of income eligibility. That income eligibility will be increasing to 400% of the federal poverty level. And it's important to note that this is also the time of year where the Child Development Division can go in and update kind of annual adjustments to align with the newest edition of the federal poverty guidelines. Those are published by the feds usually in late January, sometimes as late as early February each year. So the Child Development Division needs a little bit of time to take what is published by the federal government and figure out what does that mean for Vermont and update guidelines for the Vermont Child Care Financial Assistance Program. The other important change that's happening for families in April is there is an increase in the families that have a no copay. Right now, that is capped at 150% of the federal poverty level, and that will be increasing to 175% of the federal poverty level. In July of next year, the program also expands to families that are non-citizens. So those families will still need to meet the service needs and income eligibility guidelines, but this will bring in state funding to basically say wrap around families that may be refugees, migrant laborers, a large variety of different families with different residency statuses that can then be eligible for child care financial assistance. This is also the time at which reimbursement rates will increase again for family child care homes. So right now there is a differential between the rates paid to center-based programs and family child care homes. This is a step forward to close the gap between those two programs. So this will be an increase of 50% of the differential between those two rate types. This is also the time at which the Quality and Capacity Incentive Program will begin. So we've had readiness payments this fall, and we'll be moving to the Quality and Capacity Incentive Program in the summer of 2024. This is also the same time at which the payroll tax begins. In the bill, it's also referred to as the child care contribution, and so this will apply to employers and employees in the state of Vermont. And then finally, in October of next year, we'll do the final family income eligibility increases laid out in Act 76, increasing from that 400% that we reached in April to 575 for families. So those are the key pieces that folks had questions on. Again, if you have additional questions, Child Development Division still is going to present, Erin from First Children's Finance, and then additional questions can go in the Q&A feature. And I'm going to turn it over to the Child Development Division now.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jen. Thanks to Let's Work Kids and Vermont AEYC and First Children's Finance for organizing, and thanks to everybody who is listening in today. You know, the Child Development Division does see ourselves as your partner in serving young children and their families. And while there are, as Jen went over, there are so many changes in this bill, we know that, you know, in your communities and your programs and your families, they all have to adapt to it. We are doing our best on our side to change the systems that we have on the state side, and to communicate about that and be transparent about that with you. As I get started, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we have created a dedicated webpage, and thank you to Luann who just threw it in the chat, for Act 76, was H2 17, now officially called Act 76. Now that's officially a law, not just a bill. And we are trying to keep that links to key information that you need there. That's where you can find a link there to what the rates will be over time as they change. You can find information, you can find frequently asked questions document there. You can find a summary and status report that we're trying to keep updated regularly there. So I think that's an important resource for you. And we there's also a link there to to send us questions by email or to reach out to us. We are very happy to answer questions. We want to be as clear and as transparent as we possibly can be. We don't, and if there's something that you've thought of that we haven't thought of, we'd like to know about that so we can get ahead of it and help figure it out. So I wanted to offer that. There's a few questions that came in through the chat that I wanted to identify, or sorry, respond to. And so I'll respond to a couple of them. I'll turn it over to Dawn to give the update on readiness payments. So in terms of the changes for childcare financial assistance, the questions that were being asked were sort of around how will this affect the families my families that are receiving subsidy? How will families know about the changes? And so to that, I have a few things to offer. So one, I want to make sure that folks know that there was money in the bill to support additional communications out about the changes in the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. So we are going to be, we're hiring somebody at the Child Development Division to focus on communications. We are going to be developing a communications campaign that's directly targeted towards parents, and revising our materials to make sure that they are that they sort of appeal to this expanded audience for whom childcare financial assistance, who will now be eligible for childcare financial assistance. Because the first change in eligibility is next April, right? That's from the 350% of FPL to 400%. And then the big change is a year from now-ish, with the October 1st, 24 increase up to 575% of the federal poverty level. We're imagining that sort of the outreach and communication to parents will start happening sort of in late February, early March. We're not trying to get out there, start advertising before sort of the information, the systems are set up for people to be able to start having their applying and have their applications processed. So we have that in mind. It is really, we know it's really important, and we're thinking of it in in the first quarter of 2024 is when we would start doing additional outreach to families. I also wanted you to know that we have provided additional funding to the community child care support agencies. Those are the agencies in your communities that provide the child care financial assistance eligibility determination, as well as referral services. Those organizations have received a significant increase in their budget, and they are staffing up and hiring more eligibility specialists. I think right now we're training 9 new eligibility specialists, and we anticipate like additional sort of cohorts of eligibility specialists over the next year. So we recognize that there will be lots of questions and more new people coming to the program. And so we are, again, working to make sure that the system is ready to absorb the new families. And so that, I think, is a little bit more about the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. There still will be, for Child Care Financial Assistance, I think the basic structure of income eligibility plus some service need will remain. And I think that sometimes when people are talking to families, sometimes that gets a little bit confusing to folks, but you do need to have both a reason that you need childcare. Typically that's work or going to school. We're looking at those service needs, seeing what, if we could expand what's eligible, and then the income eligibility. So you need to have both of those things, and that's what the eligibility specialists are looking for. So again, if you're talking to families, I think that's one of the keys to know, is that it's not just it's not just income level. It's also that you have the service need as well. And yeah, so that's Child Care Financial Assistance questions. There was another question about the tuition increase rate cap. This was an element of the law that was sort of added later in the negotiations that set, set an upper threshold, set a cap on how much regulated childcare programs can increase their rates on an annual basis. Big picture, I would offer that there is sort of this constant tension, right, in sort of childcare policy and program development between how do we keep things affordable for families and how do we give programs the resources that they need to pay their staff well and offer the quality that we know that early childhood educators want to offer, that families are looking for, and that's like a real tension. And so I don't want to speak on behalf of the legislature necessarily, but my interpretation of the conversation around putting this tuition rate increase in was that there was a sense that there's a lot of there was going to be big rate investments into the Child Care Financial Assistance Program. In terms of rates paid to programs, there was going to be big investments that were going to allow more families to qualify for subsidy. And then there was also this question of well, how do we address prices for families who maybe don't qualify? And so there was a sense that a rate cap would be the way to do that. That's what the legislature put into law. As a state, right now where we're at is we are, we're a little more than 3 months after this requirement became law. And so we really feel like we're still in the education phase of making sure that programs know what the law is, understand what it says. And this is, so that's sort of where we are. We did put out a memo to childcare programs maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago that tried to sort of explain a little bit more about how this was calculated. Where did this percent increase come from? How you might calculate it on your own program. But this is really about the rate of tuition that your program is sort of advertising as its rate and how much you charge families from 1 year to the next year. I think that answers the questions that were in there, which was sort of like, why is this there? Like, why is there this rate cap? What's the intention behind it? Again, this was something the legislature put into place. And then the question of how does it, is this applying, which tuition does this apply to? And it's really about the rate that you are charging to families year over year and how much you can increase that. I know that there's many, many childcare programs are, who like really wrestle every year with how much to increase tuition because your families can't afford it, right? And people, I've been part of those discussions where you're debating for is it a 2.5% increase or is it a 3% increase? And it's like a really hard and fraught discussion. I also know we're in this moment that's like very noisy in terms of all the policy changes, in terms of ARPA stabilization going away and readiness payments coming and CCFAP rates changing. And so it's really to set your rates in that environment is tricky. And so I just want to acknowledge that it is confusing. Like it can feel confusing. That makes sense. Right now the rate cap is at 7.2%. Most programs on an annual basis do stay below that, but I understand there might be people, because of all of the changes that are happening right now, feeling like that's not enough for them. But please feel free to keep reaching out to us with questions. We'll try to keep sort of interpreting it for you. And then First Children's Finance, which speak in a little bit, they may also be able to help you as you're sort of looking at your business model and thinking about how this requirement fits in. And then the next question was about the pre-K committee. And so Section 2 of Act 76 established a pre-kindergarten education implementation committee, and it established 2 co-chairs, one from the Agency of Human Services, one from the Agency of Education. So Interim Secretary Heather Boucher is the Agency of Education co-chair. I've been named as the co-chair for the Agency of Human Services. And and then the law outlines exactly who needs to be on the committee and who is responsible for naming the specific person on the committee if it's not like totally obvious the way it's written. And so right now, all but 2 of the positions have been filled right now. We've had a couple of introductory meetings. Essentially, we're still definitely getting organized. We are hiring a facilitator and project manager for the committee. And I think, we're right now in the stage, I think, of getting to like actually writing the contract. So hopefully this is coming in the next couple of weeks. And I think that will really help us be able to, certainly will help us be able to accelerate the pace of the work for that committee. But again, as Jen was saying, the major product for the committee is a report that is due in December of 2024. So while it might seem like we're a little slow to get going, we do, I think, have enough time to fulfill the mandate for the committee. And I think the other thing to know is that, the about Act 76 at this point, right, is it does not mandate changes in pre-kindergarten education at this point. It asked the committee, if we were to adjust pre-kindergarten education to focus on expanding services for 4-year-olds, what would that look like? And there's a number of other sort of questions that are in there that the committee's been asked to tackle. I think we now do have there's now a dedicated page on the Agency of Education website that will have the meeting schedule and all of the meeting minutes for people that want to follow along. All the meetings are public meetings. So if you are very welcome to attend and welcome to make comments as well. So then I will turn it over to Dawn Rouse, who's going to give you an update on the readiness payment program.
Thanks, Janet. So hi, as Janet said, I'm Dawn Rouse. I'm the director of the statewide systems at the CDD, and I'm going to talk about readiness payments, which many of you know about because it was of high interest in Act 76. In August, we released our application for the readiness program, and we designed a web page. We also had frequently asked questions, a sample application, with the goal of really keeping the application extremely simple, straight to the point, and hopefully only taking about 10 minutes. Our first target was to get payments out, the first round of payments out by the end of September, which we did. And the October payments are in process. I got an email that says the file is going over to finance today. So we will hit our next target of the end of October for the second round of payments. And now I have some numbers. Our September payment totaled about just around $2.5 million. So that's of that first payment, the amount that went out to all providers who had applied and were eligible. October's payment is looking at 2.7 million. So we're seeing an uptick in applications, which we anticipated, although we're seeing about 80% of providers who have applied. We just developed a letter for outreach for programs that we know haven't applied to do some personal, hey, did you know that this program exists and you may be eligible? Because we would really like to see that participation percent at a higher level. One of the questions was about what could readiness funds be used for? And really, the legislature gave us a lot of broad authority to, they really wanted this money to be able to go for what we think of as these 3 pillars: stability, expansion, and quality. And so really, providers and programs have the ability to make these decisions as to what is best for their programs. We didn't want to be too prescriptive because we realized that every program has slightly different needs depending on location, depending on staffing, equipment needs, outdoor play space needs, and we wanted to make sure that these were as flexible as possible. Right now, we're averaging so family child care's average payment is a little over $9,000. Center-based programs are looking at a little over $35,000 for a total award. Or excuse me, is that total award or is that monthly? That's total award. And then after schools averages is about $25,000. So centers are seeing a significant amount of investment, which centers and programs are seeing a significant amount of investment with it. We are really hoping with the reduction of the ARPA monies coming into the child care field, that this is a interim space. Oh, let's see. I have more numbers that I put somewhere. Oh, total of the 20 million that was designated for the readiness program, we have about $16.2 million committed. So all of the applications with all of the total awards is coming out right now at about $16.2 million. Some folks have asked, are there going to be additional payments? We need to wait and see, but we also know that that 35% rate increase is going to happen in January. So we anticipate that programs are going to see that reflected in their monthly income coming back to them. Sorry, had a moment there. Right now, about 80 after-school programs have applied and been eligible. About 299 center-based programs have applied and are eligible. And licensed home and registered homes, we're seeing about 327 programs that have applied. So as I said, we have about 80% uptake of this program, and we're very excited. We respond to questions in about a day. If you email to the readiness email box, I also am checking that email box every day because I'm just nosy and curious. But yeah, we're very excited, and we're very I'm so amazed at the support that Vermont is committing to the early childhood field and care. I've often said that in my 30 years of being in education, at no point has anyone ever said, hey, here's some money. So we're very glad to be facilitating this with you and for you. And now I'm going to throw it to Erin Roche at First Children's Finance.
Wow, thanks, Dawn, and thanks, Janet. Those were amazing and really helpful updates about where everything is and what's coming up in the future. So I'm Erin Roach, and I'm the Vermont director at First Children's Finance. I had the good fortune to start this First Children's Finance operation in Vermont just like 3 months before this Act 76 became a law. So I and my team have just jumped into the thick of it. First Children's Finance provides a business and technical assistance program in Vermont where we can offer business trainings and technical assistance, answer questions, provide resources. We can also, and what I really want to mention right now is that we can provide one-on-one business consultation to help you think about what you want to do with your business, what you want to get out of your business. And that's not limited to Act 76, but in this moment, I think Act 76 provides some opportunities for owner operators or program directors to engage with us on a more personal, individualized level, so that you can really think about what Act 76 means for your business and how to use what's in the bill, what's in the law, to best serve your goals and your business's goals. And so I know I've been kind of like Dawn checking the readiness payment applications. I can't help but look at that Q&A as questions are coming in. And I know that there's questions about, well, how is this going to help me when most of my families don't get CCFAP? What is this rate cap going to do for me? And how am I supposed to maintain my business? I think that we can't really, and I shouldn't speak for Dawn or for Janet, but I do think that we can't really answer everyone's specific question because everyone's business is a little bit different. So it's really hard to make very big general statements about what this means and doesn't mean for your business. Anyway, right, that's a little bit of my soapbox. I do encourage you to reach out to me, reach out to anyone on the First Children's Finance team if you want to work through what your budget looks like and what it will look like next year with all these changes, or cash flow or any other business goals that you might have. We've been doing a lot of talking to people about benefits and benefits they might want to offer to their staff and what that might mean for them and for their staff, et cetera. So happy to work with anyone on a one-on-one or a small group basis. We've also been incorporating sort of information and lessons about Act 76 in the trainings that we've been running this fall. We have just a couple more left on the schedule, and then we will adjourn until January. But anyway, so feel free to register for one of those trainings if you are interested in any of that. Okay, so I'm just looking at my notes because I feel like there's a lot going on and I'm really excited about all of it and I don't want to forget anything. I was asked, somehow I get the good fortune to talk about taxes because that's everybody's favorite subject. So the question that we got before today coming into this meeting was, how does Act 76 affect family childcare? And also, what are the tax implications of this new payroll tax? Jen put the timeline up earlier that that this payroll tax will go into effect in July 2024. So so I was going to talk just a little bit about that. I have spent the past week talking to people at the Department of Taxes and other tax experts, but I want to caveat this by saying I am not a tax professional. I do not have a CPA. I am not giving you tax advice. I am just relaying what the law says and not telling you what you should do about your taxes. Okay, so that's my big disclaimer. So what Act 76 says about payroll taxes, let me back up 1 second. This payroll tax is implemented in order to raise the public funds to make this $125 million investment in childcare. Okay, so we're not just implementing a payroll tax for fun. It's to pay for all of the things, all of the public investment that's happening. So, okay. So the way it's going to raise that money is that there is, we call it a payroll tax. There are two ways that payroll tax is implemented. One is employers in Vermont, and also you should know, it's not just childcare employers. This is a tax that will be implemented on every employer in the state, no matter how big or small they are. So employers, and the other part of the tax is in effect on self-employed individuals that don't employ people. Again, this is implemented across the entire state. It is not just childcare, self-employed people or sole proprietors. It is every sole proprietor in the state. So I just wanted to make really clear that this affects basically everyone who works in Vermont will be affected by this tax. So anyway, okay, the details. So for the employer part of the tax, it's 0.44% of all wages paid by that employer. They can choose to withhold up to 25% of that tax from their employees' wages themselves and pay 0.33% themselves. So it's 0.44 to the employer. They can choose to sort of assign 0.11 of that, not of that, 0.11 to the employee wages and pay 0.33 themselves, or they can pay the whole 0.44 themselves. That's probably a lot of complicated information. So that's one part of the tax. The other part is for people who are sole proprietors, do not have any employees. So they're not paying as an employer, they're paying for their own net income. And I just want to mention, this is how your businesses get taxed already, whether you have employees or don't have employees. This is not, this is a new tax, but it's not different from the way you're already taxed on your revenue or your income or your wages. Okay. So for self-employed people, sole proprietors who do not have employees, they will be taxed 0.11% of their net income. So that should look a lot like what you get taxed on your net income. You pay business taxes on your net income already if you're set up in this way. And so this will just be a little bit more to that. And I wanted to give an example of how much money we're talking about when I say 0.11% or 0.44%. And when I talk about payroll tax, everybody hates taxes. Nobody wants to pay taxes, really. And it's terrifying. So 0.11% is equal to $1.10 for every $1,000 of net income. Okay, $1.10 for every $1,000 of net income is 0.11%. And I mention this because, so if you were making $50,000, if you had $50,000 of net income and you're self-employed, we're talking about an extra $55 a year in your taxes for this tax. And if you are an employer, that's $4.40 for every $1,000 of wages that you are paying out. Okay, so I just wanted to put this in perspective because I think that when we talk about taxes, sometimes they sound big and looming and scary. And anyway, so I just wanted you to have that information. Also, I want to say, if you are not sure what this means for you, and I know some people have been working on their 2024 budgets and they are asking questions about what is this going to mean? What am I going to have to withhold? What am I going to have to do? We can help you a little bit with that. I also heard today that the Department of Taxes is doing workshops with tax preparers tomorrow. They have a full day of workshops with tax preparers for 2024, and this is one of their sessions that they'll be doing. So by next week, your tax preparers should know how to handle these taxes. But you're welcome to talk to us, and we'd be happy to work through your budget and think about what your wages are, what your net income looked like last year, and make some estimates about what it likely means for you. And then the last point I wanted to make is that Let's Grow Kids, with some support from First Children's Finance, has been hosting webinars about benefits for employees and benefits for yourself if you're self-employed, including qualified retirement accounts and health insurance and health savings accounts, things like that. Those could help if you are self-employed. Those things, contributions to those things, would help lower your net income. And so if you're, one of the other things we can help you with is if you are looking for strategies that are good for your business, good for yourself, that would lower your net income or lower your net wages, we'd be happy to also talk to you about things like that. Oh, one last point about family childcare. Somebody asked a question: how does this law affect family childcares? And I did want to mention that the law does two things about family childcare. One of them is that there is an extra increase in reimbursement rates only for family childcare that is next July. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that the law specifically calls out intent around family childcares and how important they are in this system, and how much they want to increase the number of family childcares in the state that support children and families. So I just wanted to mention that other than those two things, the law really treats all childcare programs the same. Has the same taxes, it has the same changes in reimbursement, the same eligibility and CCFAP, the same readiness payments, all of those things are the same. So I just wanted to comment on that. Okay. Anyway, I'm not quite sure who I'm supposed to turn it over to now. Oh, Beth.
Thanks,
Okay.
Erin.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to go over quickly some programs that Vermont AEYC administers to increase workforce, remove barriers to workforce, because that was another question that we had heard. So just a reminder, we have the Teach Apprenticeship program, the pre-apprenticeship program, I'm sorry, that is for high school and technical students who are interested in the field. So really capturing people when they're thinking about their futures. We have the apprenticeship program for early childhood educators who are actively working in the field. We have the early childhood scholarship program that supports educators in accessing higher education and teacher licensure. And the student loan repayment assistance program for early childhood educators, which provides up to $8,000 in student loan repayments. And we'll be hosting 2 webinars on student loans on November 2nd. So stay tuned and be looking for that information. And then also grants and bonuses that both remove barriers like laptops, not having a computer, or childcare when you need to go to class, and also rewards accomplishments. And you can find out more about all of those programs on the Vermont AEYC website, an updated website that Luann's going to put in the chat. I know before we end that Janet wanted to speak specifically to questions around CCFAP and rate comparison.
Yes, thank you, Beth. And thanks, everybody. So there's a bunch of questions around childcare financial assistance rate and how that interacts with the tuition rate that your program sets for families. And I think the biggest key that we need to figure out how we make sure everybody understands this is that as of the new year, the comparison between how much your program currently charges and how much the state will pay you for childcare financial assistance, that comparison will go away. So starting in the new year, we will say the state will just pay sort of what is a childcare financial assistance state rate minus the weekly family share, which is the similar model we have right now. But that we are just going to pay that. We are not going to compare that to how much you currently charge families. So I know there is, so how much you decide you want to charge families who outside of the Child Care Financial Assistance Program subsidy, that is not going to be a factor anymore in how much the state pays you for Child Care Financial Assistance Program. So that link is broken. So right now there was questions, right now we say, we'll either pay the state's capped rate or how much you charge families, whichever is less. That's the comparison that's going away. So you shouldn't, you will be able to benefit from the full Child Care Financial Assistance state rate, that increase, without feeling like you also have to increase your rates 35% or something like that because that comparison is going away. I know lots of programs, the impact of this is going to make a big difference depending on the composition of the families that you serve in your program and what those families' incomes are. So it's difficult for us to sort of answer some of the questions that come in about like, what difference is this going to make? Because as Erin was saying, it really depends on the composition of your families. But that one kind of real complicating factor that really was tying what the state would pay to what you were charging other families, that comparison is going to go away. So hopefully that will make things simpler for programs to be able to count on the specific resources from the state and be able to benefit from those as you figure out what is the rate of pay you want to charge to your private pay families. And I would just also offer, we anticipate that we're going to get to a place where the majority of families who are using childcare will actually be receiving childcare financial assistance. 575% of the federal poverty level as an income-based thing. Jen will know the number better than me. That's 80%, 90% of families that could be income eligible at that level. So we know it needs to be combined with a service need, but this really is going to be a pretty fundamental shift in terms of the role that childcare financial assistance payments play probably in many centers financial picture. So, and this is the part where, again, that business planning, some of the supports that First Children's Finance can offer, and that's sort of why the state is helping fund First Children's Finance to be able to offer those services. So I just wanted to offer that. And then I also wanted to tag that there's another part of the law that says that you do need to publish your rates and make your rates available to the public. We are working on how we could update CDDIS like in the future to be able to have that be an information source and a place for that information to be posted, but we are not there yet. So in the meantime, use your own program's website, share that information with your childcare referral specialist. There's the childcare links site that Let's Grow Kids runs. That could be another place. So you really do just, and if somebody asks you for your rates, you're obligated now to provide that to them. So I just wanted to make some of those points. Again, we are available for questions. We tried to answer some of these questions in the frequently asked questions we have on our website, but we also know that it's exhausting sometimes to do a research project every time you have a question. So sometimes just shoot us a question and we'll answer you. So.
Thank you, Janet. We are out of time. Thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today. Let's Grow Kids will be sending an email in the next week or so that will include the link to this recording. And we do have a handful of questions that we didn't get to answer today, but again, we'll be reviewing those and figuring out the best way to send out communication and answer those questions that were top of mind. Thanks so much, folks. Take care.